Hi, today we're going to talk about configuring audio within Adobe Connect. Now, the nice thing about audio in Adobe Connect is that you can have lots and lots of participants, and you can push your audio and video through your desktop connection out to any of those participants, and then in turn any of those participants can speak back to you. That's using the assumption that the participants understand how to configure their systems correctly, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Now, this isn't really very difficult, it's just that it's a process that you have to do in a particular order to make sure that the results that you want are going to come out the way that you intended. Okay? So, even though we're going to talk about Connect particularly, we need to start back at the operating system, and we'll explain why we have to do that. So I'm going to show you how to set this up on a Mac and also how to set this up on Windows. So let's start out by here. Now, what happens is that when you're using audio or video, you have to set your system up first. What I mean by system is your computer, because you have inputs for your computer and you also have inputs for the Connect session. And what happens is that your inputs that you have set for your computer are what get pulled when you start a Connect session. And so if you have your input set improperly before you start your Connect session, then those improper inputs will be pulled over once you begin your Connect session. So let's illustrate what we mean by that. Okay, so in order to check to see how you have stuff set up on a Mac, you go to the Apple menu and then you go to System Preferences. Now, it's always recommended that when you're in a Connect session that you use a headset, that is a pair of headphones with a built-in microphone, and that's going to have the best experience possible because you're not going to have a lot of ambient room noise, and you're also going to be able to hear extremely well without disturbing all the people around you. Now, a lot of people want to use them on laptops, and you have built-in microphones, cameras, and speakers. This creates problems for feedback, and so at a minimum you need to plug in a pair of headphones and use the internal microphone. It's not an ideal solution, but it's better than the alternative. So it's recommended that you spend the $25 or $30 to buy a decent headset with a microphone and use that whenever you're in your Connect sessions. But once that's done, you have to properly install it and configure it. And so let's start out by going to System Preferences and then Sound. And then you have two options here. You have Output, this is what you hear, and then you have Input, this is what's heard by you. And so you have to select the proper input. Now in this setup we have output set not from the internal speakers, but unknown USB audio device. Sometimes they use generic drivers, they work perfectly well, it just doesn't know what the type of device it is. And so you can select that one here, and then input you want to make sure that it's matching as well. If we had internal microphone, then we'd be using the microphone that's built into the computer itself, and we'd be picking up every noise that's in the room. This happens to be in a lab setting, so that'd be quite loud, so we want to select unknown USB audio device. And then once they're plugged in, then you can start speaking and set your levels. Now this is a particular machine where I'm not speaking directly into, but you'll see how that works in a little bit. And then once you've set your levels, a good rule of thumb is you set it to about 3/4 of the way, and then a normal speaking voice, that's perfectly fine. And all you have to do is then close that window, and those settings are your default settings for your system. Okay, so the way that you do this in Windows is very similar, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's go to Windows. Now this happens to be Windows 7, but this could just as easily be XP or Vista or depending on how far you're looking at this in the future, Windows 8. So in order to set your audio settings in Windows, you go to the Start menu, and then you click on Control Panels, and then you'll click on the Hardware and Sound, and then the Sound option. Now under the Sound option, you'll have Playback, this is what's heard, and then you'll have Recording, and this is your microphone that you're recording in. And so if you see, like this one is, that the VU meter is going up and down in this, you know that you've already got the microphone that you're wearing configured properly. But if you don't, all you have to do is click on this and then hit Properties, and then you can change the name. You can listen to what it sounds like, you can set your levels. This one's set to 100%, and then under advanced you can set the quality or whatnot. Okay, you can also configure this if you need to. If you're not seeing it come up, like if you're speaking and it's just absolutely not working. So with this you can say start speech recognition. You can set up your microphone. That's what we're really interested in. So that this one's a headset. And then there's a wizard that will walk you through this. Set up your headset. You have an audio level. So basically it's showing you that you want to stay within the green. If it pushes over into red a little bit, that's okay. And then once you're done with that, you can go ahead and hit cancel and then close out of this. And then if you make any settings that you need to change, you click apply and then close all these down. Now that's what we do first before we even get into the Adobe Connect meeting. And it's really critical that you do this every time that you're going to have a session in Connect, because you may have changed your audio sources, or if it's a USB headset, you'll have unplugged it and it will have reset to your default settings. Some systems will automatically see that USB device being plugged in. Others will see it as a device but not automatically switch to it. So you really have to do these checks every time that you log into Connect. Okay, so now that we have our system levels input properly, let's go into Connect, and there's some stuff that we can do in order to set the audio within Connect first. Okay, so let's go to Connect. Now, from within Connect, we can see as a presenter or participant. As a participant, you may not see these. As a presenter, you can turn on your camera, you can turn on your microphone. But if you don't have your microphone configured properly, that audio is not going to be pushed through to the people that are in the meeting with you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Meeting, and then we're going to click on the Audio Setup Wizard. Okay, and what this is going to do is this is going to step us through to help us configure our recording and our sound properly. So we're going to click Next. Okay, now what it'll do is it'll say, okay, play the sound, and what you're going to listen to is to make sure that sound is coming out of the source that you intended. So if you have a pair of a headset on, you want to make sure that it's coming out of the headphones of that headset rather than the internal speakers on your laptop or desktop. Okay, if once you have that set properly, if in fact this were coming out of the wrong place, then you'd go back to your system level settings and alter those and then come back into the meeting. Okay, then next. And so now we want to have broadcast audio. This is where it's coming in from. So we say, yeah, I want to use my Sennheiser USB headset. That's the one I'm using currently. Okay. Then it's going to pick that up. And so then what we want to do now is we want to record it or test that setting to make sure it's working properly. So I'm going to click on Record to start recording. So now I'm going to start speaking a little bit, and then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to click Recording to make sure that it sounds the way I had intended it to start recording. So now I'm going to start speaking a little bit, and then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to click. Okay, if this were too low or too loud, you'd want to then stop this process, exit out of Connect, go back to your system level settings, make those corrections, and then come back into Connect and do this again. But this sounds pretty good to me, so we're going to move on. So now we're going to go to the next. Now this is really nice. This is Tune Silence Level. What this is that there's a setting within Adobe Connect that will allow you to sort of filter out background noise. So even if you could be in a lab that has some level of sound coming into it, Adobe, the system, will be able to detect that sort of background level of noise and help filter that out. And so it's a good idea to actually test this. So what we want to do is we're going to click Test Silence, and then we're not going to be speaking while that's going on, and then allow that to complete. It takes a second or two, and then what that'll do is it'll help you filter out that background noise. So I'm going to click the Test Silence. And notice once it completes, then click Next. Otherwise, it will continue running the test, and it won't necessarily be good. So now it says that we've heard the audio coming out of our proper source. The system has heard our microphone coming in, and that it's set appropriately. And then we've also set the background silence level to help us filter out any background noise. And so then once that's done, we can click Finish. And then we should be able to go up here to the microphone and say Connect. Now that we have our audio pushing through, you'll see that I have these little waves coming out as I speak. They're going up and down with my voice, and there's an icon next to my name to display that I do in fact have my microphone turned on. Now this is a voice activated system, so when I make pauses, you'll see that little icon go away, and you'll see these waves disappear as well. So this is sort of a visual indication that everything is actually being broadcast. It's one way to tell that if a participant is actually speaking, you can see that they have the microphone icon, but if the audience can't hear, it could be something as simple as that they don't have the sound turned up properly, but if you run through your audio wizard, you'll have all that configured properly. So those are the basic precepts of what you have to do to begin an Adobe Connect session. And these, again, should be done prior to every session. It just takes a minute or two, but it's really going to help out with your communicating inside of your Adobe Connect meeting space.